Feeling broke? Well, you are not alone. The cost of living and inflation are shrinking the middle class, and that's not up for debate. But what is up for debate is who is the middle class. There's actually no official definition, but the most popular definition, and the one we hear about the most, is from Pew Research, covering a range of 2/3 to 2 times median household income. Here's an infographic for 2023 I built on who is the middle class. Now, these figures are up slightly in 2024 with the middle class household income including a range of $64,000 to $120,000. However, maybe you still don't believe me. So if you want to see if you are the middle class or where you fall in the middle class, you can visit this website from Pew Research, enter in your individual or household income, and they'll tell you whether you are middle class and where you fall in the middle class. Of course, we could argue all day about who is the middle class, and you could argue that the middle class is as much a feeling as it is a figure. I ain't got all day, and I don't like to argue, so I'm going to use these 4 figures from Bloomberg that recently dropped that said the math to get in the middle class and stay in the middle class has gotten more difficult. And here are the indicators or milestones they use for what it takes to get into the middle class or feel like you are middle class. Can you afford the median priced home in America? Can you afford an average car? Can you, if you choose to have children, afford to send those children to daycare? And when those children are age 18, can you afford to send them to university, college, trade school? Are they able to have a better future than you had in the past as a parent? Now, let's break down each of these 4 milestones individually, starting with average car payment, because most of us at least have a car. How much car can you afford? Well, do you buy the car you can afford, or do you buy the car you want? On average, here's how much Americans are paying for new and used vehicles. Most financial planners recommend that you keep your car payment below 10% of your annual salary month to month. Here's that breakdown by salary, and here's 10%. When it comes to new cars, Americans are financing about $40,000 across 68 months. That brings their monthly payment to $735, and they're getting an APR of 7.1 on average. However, here's the breakdown by FICO score. College costs have far exceeded inflation. And in fact, if you want to go to one of the top 10 schools in America, it might cost you over $300,000 to attend for a 4-year university, whether public or private, with obviously private schools costing even more. What is still true is that our peak earning years occur between our mid-30s and our mid-50s, which means that's when most Americans would start to move into the middle class, which means typically or traditionally, we would start transitioning into these milestones that you would see here, such as marriage or having children. However, today's modern family looks nothing like it did just 20 or 30 or especially 2 generations ago. In 1990, if you were about 35 years old, about you or 60% of your friends would have at least 1 child. Today, in 2024, less than 30% of 35-year-olds have at least 1 child. Men and women are marrying older than ever, with women marrying on average around age 28 and men marrying on average around age 30. That is, if they marry at all. About a quarter of Americans age 40 will not get married at all. Some of the factors behind this is childcare, having a children, and even the cost of having a wedding. The average wedding in the United States, $35,000. And yes, that does look different across the country, as you see here in this map. However, people are putting off marriage, children, and these traditional milestones of the middle class, due to personal choices, but also due to cost factors, because the world is getting more expensive. Even though still about 38% of Americans have a college degree, with women graduating lately with about twice the rate of college degrees than men, we're still seeing that for the first time in the last 20, 40, or even going all the way back to 1940, by age 30, this is the first time about 50% of Americans will make less than their parents did. Put another way, the outcomes for 30-year-olds these days are worse than it was for their parents and their grandparents. For example, Forbes found that to maintain the buying power of $100,000 in 1994, you would have to make over $200,000 in 2024. But as we see here, not a lot of jobs pay over $100,000, let alone $200,000. Bloomberg then looks at a median price of a single-family home for the middle class that was $241,000, almost $242,000 in 2016, and now it's over $400,000 in 2024. It is of course important to note that home values increased about 40% during the pandemic, spiking, and they have flatlined recently, but of course this only tells half the story. When we look at home values across the United States, they also range greatly from $155,000 in West Virginia, over $800,000 in Hawaii. Again, for the individuals who want to live in a major city, nationally, you need a salary of about $100,000 to afford the median price home. And while that might be cheaper in these 25 least expensive metros, you would be hard pressed to be able to afford the median priced home in the 25 most expensive metros in the United States, with many of those pushing you over a six-figure salary just to afford the typical or average middle class home. Who is America's middle class? Well, here's one definition. Those figures come from Credit News Report. Can America's middle class still afford home ownership in 2024? I'm going to look at home ownership first because home prices are crazy, and I don't think people realize how insane they've gotten in the last 50 years. But here's a figure just to break it down for you. Clever looked at home prices versus inflation since 1960, and here's what they found. Had home prices grew at the same rate of inflation, today home prices would be about $177,000. Instead, they're closer to $431,000. Here's another way of looking at just how crazy home prices have gotten. Here's what boomers paid for their homes in the 1980s when they were in their 30s. Homes were about $80,000 and median household income was about $23,000. Even if we adjusted for inflation, that would put median household income around $70,000 and homes around $200,000. Now let's look at homes for millennials in their 30s. Household income is $74,000 and homes are over $400,000. Find all those figures and a lot more disturbing information in that study from Clever, but I'm going to focus on the middle class, home prices. I'll do a full video on this later this month, or drop a question in the comment for a video reply. Now, back to credit news. Can America's middle class still afford home ownership in 2024? I'll do a full video breakdown, and before I end this video, I'll do a state-by-state breakdown for who is in the middle class by their definition. Nerds in the audience, here's the methodology they use to come up with the middle class across the United States. Basically, they say the Pew Research says that 2/3 of middle household income is lower middle class, that middle number is middle class, and double household income is upper middle class. What does that mean in plain English? When you take 2/3 of household income, that leaves you with a range of $30,000 to $58,000. Your middle class is $58,000 to $94,000, and when you double household income, you have a range of $94,000 to $153,000. Let me know what you think of these middle class figures in the comments below. Keep in mind that median household income is around $74,000. So where are those affordable metro areas? You're talking about places like Toledo, Akron, shout out to my home state, El Paso, at least we got one city, and here are a few others. Probably to the surprise of no one, the least affordable metros are places like Boston, Jersey, and of course, most are located in California. For more information, check out Credit News Report. Can America's middle class still afford home ownership in 2024? For those of you watching on YouTube, I'll just drop a link in the video description below or drop a comment below for a video reply. Now, I also promised you that I was going to give you the middle class incomes across the United States. Here's what I found. I just dropped the income to be middle class in every state. You can find it on my Instagram at the link in bio, or I'll step out of the way for those of you who want a screenshot. In this video, I'm answering a few frequently asked questions. Number one, where did I get this information? I used to work at Go Banking Rate, so I like citing their data. Plus, I know they hire good writers and they source their methodology. The data for this story comes from this paragraph right here. You can find it at what income is needed to be middle class in 2024. Based on data from the U.S. Census Bureau, nationally, middle income is about $50,000 to $150,000 a year. Who defines the middle class? Well, actually, there are a lot of definitions out there, but a popular cited one comes from Pew Research Center, which says the middle class or middle class households are those incomes that are 2/3 to double the U.S. median household income. How does the U.S. Census Bureau define household? And I've got that definition for you right here. A household includes all people who occupy a housing unit. Based on that definition, they plotted the median, lower, and upper middle class incomes from every state, or if you prefer a list, I created this table. Let's quickly review. I created this table with every state in the United States in alphabetical order. Then I placed the median income in those states. Pew Research defines middle class as 2/3 or lower middle to upper middle, which is twice the median household income. I then grabbed the middle of those two figures for the middle class income in all 50 United States. I'm the host of Life After Debt with the Marcus Garrett. I make videos about news and trends that impact your money. Thanks for the follow.